Hello, romance lovers. Today I have a story for you called It's a Misunderstanding That You're Dating the Underworld. Don't forget to support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. Thank you for watching. In the mysterious darkness of the night, against the backdrop of a huge moon, a phantom thief named Heilbronner appeared. This man is currently the most talked about character in the Empire. This adventurer does not get his strange nickname for nothing. He is engaged in theft, but he does it in a special way. First, the phantom thief sends a letter to his victim that he will be robbed. After some time, Heilbronner does what he has planned, mocking the discouraged victims of his villainy. But the phantom thief only does this to the rich. He is very popular among the common people of the Empire. People consider Heilbronner a folk hero who punishes the rich aristocrats for their greed. But the phantom thief Heilbronner is not as simple as he seems at first glance. This successful adventurer is an evil genius who opposes the main character and his assistants. The real name of the phantom thief is Rutger Kassin. He holds the title of Viscount. But for this young man, his occupation with theft is a way of confronting the protagonist of this fantasy story, in which the main character is embodied. Clara Waven unexpectedly finds herself in the fantasy world of her favorite book as a civil servant who leads the Royal Ruby Knights. The main character of our story is a supporting character. She is hardly mentioned in the book. The girl wants to live unnoticed so as not to get into various difficult situations. Hiding behind the mask of an ordinary civil servant who deals with ordinary matters, the main character wants to calmly carry out her duties and not participate in the intrigues and adventures of the other characters. But something went wrong as Clara Waven had expected. The girl was unable to avoid dizzying adventures that affected her future destiny. By the will of fate, the main character encountered a phantom thief who constantly broke the law and robbed the local aristocracy. The head of the Ruby Knights, on the orders of the Emperor, had to neutralize the dangerous criminal Heilbronner. During a bloody duel with a phantom thief, Clara Waven tore off the mask of the criminal. It would have been better if the girl had not done this, because she found out that under the mask was a famous aristocrat who had always been in good standing and had an impeccable reputation. The girl did not expect such a turn of events. Under the mask of the popular criminal was the glorious Viscount Rutger Kassin. This is just some kind of horror. The main character does not understand how to act now. The phantom thief first tried to cover his face so that the captain of the Ruby Knights would not recognize him. But then the Viscount realized that it was useless and stopped hiding his identity. He had nothing to lose. Rutger Kassin praised the heroine for her skillful fencing and the way she masterfully tore off his mask. The girl replied that it was just an accident, and she was not worthy of the Viscount's praise. The phantom thief replied that such mastery of the sword could hardly be called a mere coincidence. He knew a lot about the art of fencing. Clara Waven said that she deeply regretted revealing the Viscount's identity. She swore that she would not tell anyone who was hiding under the mask of the phantom thief Heilbronner. The words of the captain of the Ruby Knights puzzled the young adventurer. He looks closely at the brave girl and does not know what to answer her. At this time, the main character picked up the torn-off mask of the phantom thief Heilbronner from the floor of the room and tries to hand it to her interlocutor so that he can put it on again, as if nothing had happened. Clara Waven told the Viscount to take his mask and leave immediately. This would help him remain incognito and continue his public activities for the benefit of the Empire, without being brought to trial. The Viscount reacted negatively to the heroine's request. The proud aristocrat thought that the girl decided to mock him because she defeated him in a sword fight. Clara Waven told the phantom thief Heilbronner that she did not want to mock him. The girl truly believes that the Viscount's criminal secret must be kept. She is afraid of the consequences of this sensational revelation. The girl added that no one would believe her anyway, even if she told everyone she met about Viscount Kassin's exposure. It was better not to get involved in all this and continue living a quiet life without any particular problems or misfortunes. Rutger Kassin had always been smart and resourceful. So he decided that there was a grain of truth in the words of the captain of the Ruby Knights. The phantom thief was inclined to believe the girl that she would not tell anyone anything. The Viscount thought for a moment and walked towards his interlocutor to close the distance and look her in the eyes closer. The girl's eyes would show whether she was telling the truth or simply wanted to deceive the phantom thief. The young adventurer approached the main character closely and said that any slip of the tongue could lead to the spread of useless and dangerous rumors that could harm her. It could also lead to the death of the Viscount. The main character looked into the eyes of the phantom thief Heilbronner and froze with her mouth open in amazement. For a moment, the girl thought that she was communicating not with a hardened criminal, but with a real angel. Clara Waven is amazed beyond measure. Deep down, she knows that she is currently under the hypnotic influence of Viscount Cassin, who has taken over her feminine essence. This has never happened to the captain of the Ruby Knights before. The girl looks closely at her charming interlocutor and cannot tear her gaze away from him. The face of the phantom thief seemed angelic and innocent to the main character. The girl does not understand what is happening to her. She did not expect to fall under the spell of a young adventurer who is worthy only of an imperial trial and fair punishment. Viscount Cassin began to speak to Clara Waven, and his voice seemed to the girl the most beautiful and soulful in this world. It is mesmerizing, and does not allow the main character to come to her senses. The young adventurer came close to the confused girl, who was completely captivated by his male charm. Viscount Cassin asked the main character if she would really keep him incognito and not tell anyone about the duel that had taken place between them. The confused girl listened to her interlocutor and pressed his mask to her chest. The main character collected her thoughts and said that she would let the phantom thief Heilbronner go without any conditions and would not tell anyone anything. The captain of the Ruby Knights added that she could have caught the phantom thief at any moment, but she did not do so for personal reasons. Nothing will stop the girl from continuing to turn a blind eye to his existence and extraordinary tricks. Viscount Cassin looked attentively into the eyes of his interlocutor and took his mask from her hands. The young adventurer trusted the honest and brave girl, who promised to keep his identity a secret. The young man put on his mask and became the phantom thief Heilbronner again, who robs rich aristocrats for the amusement of the common people of the Empire. Viscount Cassin turned around and was about to leave. The phantom thief turned around and said one last thing. Time would tell if the captain of the Ruby Knights would keep his word. Only a strong man could do that. After these words, Viscount Cassin disappeared into thin air. The young adventurer has always loved various spectacular techniques that add a certain theatricality to his criminal activities. This works great on the public, which is always hungry for bread in circuses. A frightened girl was left alone in a room after the magical disappearance of the phantom thief Heilbronner. She was surprised by the unusual abilities of this original man, who interested her very much with his unconventional behavior. The main character breathed a sigh of relief when her interlocutor disappeared. The girl thought that this time she was very lucky. She really does not want to get involved with Viscount Cassin. The captain of the Ruby Knights prefers to keep her quiet and measured life in the same direction as it was. The girl does not need extra problems and adventures. Suddenly, the protagonist realized that the phantom thief's last words were important in the storyline of the romantic fantasy she had magically entered. These words could connect Clara Waven and Viscount Cassin and intertwine their destinies. All this is simply awful. Such critical changes in life were not part of the plans of the main character of this story. The girl was very upset and fell to the floor in impotent anger at herself and the injustice of the world around her. The events take place a month before the duel between Clara Waven and the phantom thief Heilbronner. The main character happily runs into her office and says that she managed to come on time before the end of the lunch break. The girl made a bet with her secretary that she would do this, and now he owes his boss a free dinner. The big and beautiful clock struck the end of the lunch break. But it doesn't matter anymore, because the main character won the argument with her faithful secretary. The assistant captain of the Ruby Knights is named Lionel. This young man has a cheerful and sociable character and is always happy to serve his boss. Lionel told the main character that he would no longer be able to buy himself new gloves in a fashion boutique because he would have to pay a tidy sum of money for the dinner he lost to his mistress. Clara Waven looked at her carefree secretary and thought that the Ruby Knights were a bunch of losers who could only deal with minor everyday problems. Lionel finally admitted defeat in his argument with the captain of the Ruby Knights. The young man promised to treat the main character to a free dinner at their favorite pub tonight. Clara Waven was very happy and raised both her hands up. Suddenly, a Ruby Knight named Billy entered the office. He overheard Lionel and the main character talking. The young man said that he would prefer not an ordinary pub, but some fancy restaurant to have a delicious dinner there. The secretary appreciated the joke of the Ruby Knight Billy and laughed heartily. After that, Lionel asked the young man to bring a letter that the mayor of the capital of the Empire had sent to the knightly order today. Ruby Knight Billy was always distinguished by his efficiency, so he immediately agreed to run for the letter that the capital's mayor had sent. The secretary noticed that Billy was very happy today. Although for the Ruby Knight, this is a normal mood. The main character said that Lionel would not miss a single opportunity to make fun of someone. Clara Waven asked her secretary if there was any interesting news from Mayor Seaton. Perhaps today's letter will contain important information. Lionel replied to his boss that they would most likely not receive any important news from the mayor today. The gentleman always shied away from duty and was never in a hurry with his official reports. The main character listened to her secretary and laughed. The captain of the Order of the Ruby Knights said that they have rather strange warriors who are distinguished by laziness and a superficial attitude to their duties. Lionel smiled and told his boss that none of that mattered if he had a handsome and competent secretary. The main character liked the joke of her subordinate, who had a noble origin, but lost his title when he got involved with the wrong person. The main character took her place in the office and thought that she liked her job. The Ruby Knights Order is very small and almost no one knows anything about it. This will help Clara Waven avoid meeting the main characters of this fantasy story, in which she accidentally found herself. The captain of the Ruby Knights is resting quietly in her office and enjoying the life she has. Nothing extraordinary has happened today, and the main character really likes it. Unexpectedly, Knight Billy burst into the girl's office. He happily told his boss that he had brought today's letter from Mayor Seaton. At first, the girl was a little scared by such a sudden intrusion into her quiet and cozy office. But after a few seconds, the main character pulled herself together and took the letter from the mayor from the Knight Billy to read it. Clara Waven began to read the letter from the mayor of Seaton. The girl expected that the letter would not contain any important or sensational news, but today everything went wrong. The main character read the ill-fated letter and couldn't believe her eyes. She started to get nervous and almost tore up the message from Mayor Seaton. The captain of the Order of the Ruby Knights called her secretary and ordered him to read the message, which upset her greatly. Lionel took the letter from his boss's hands and began to read it carefully. Gradually, as he read the message, the smile began to disappear from the surprised secretary's face. The main character's assistant decided to read the order, which is in the letter from the mayor. Knight Billy still can't understand anything and smiles stupidly. But Lionel said that the Emperor's order came to catch the phantom thief Heilbronner, because the city guards could not do it. Now this burden falls on the shoulders of the Ruby Knights. The experienced secretary understands that the new task may be impossible to complete, because the phantom thief is very cunning and unpredictable. This may have a negative impact on the reputation of the Order of the Ruby Knights. The main character grabbed her head with her hands and said with despair in her head that she could not understand why fate was punishing her like this. The girl always tried to stay away from big and serious problems, but now she would have to get involved in a dangerous story. The captain of the Ruby Knights is well aware of the track record of a dangerous criminal, nicknamed Phantom Thief Heilbronner. He is a very unpredictable and cunning character who is capable of many things. The girl remembers that in the romantic book she got into, this criminal is the main villain who opposes the protagonist. And this fight will be not for life, but for death. The main character read a book in which she magically found herself in a past real life. As far as the girl remembers, the main villain of this story was not revealed right away. According to the plot of the novel, the main character of the book becomes a servant and nanny of the little prince, whom she will raise until he comes of age. When the little heir to the royal throne grew up, he fell in love with his governess with all his heart and confessed it to her. The lovers were inflamed with a real and uncontrollable passion for each other. Heilbronner unexpectedly appeared in the capital, robbing rich aristocrats, warning them about it in advance. This villain always managed to get away with his crimes and avoid punishment. Clara Waven was incarnated into this romance story about a year ago. She realized that she was somewhere in the middle of the novel, because the heir to the throne had already grown up, and the phantom thief Heilbronner had appeared in the capital. The novel's protagonist, who is the second crown prince of the empire, has just begun to show himself as a man and a statesman. Officially, Viscount Rutger Casson supports the prince in everything, but transforming into the phantom thief Heilbronner, the young aristocrat seeks to harm his overlord in every possible way. There are special reasons for this. Clara Waven is very upset that the Ruby Knights were ordered to catch the phantom thief Heilbronner. Something doesn't add up here. This job should be done by other law enforcement agencies of the state. The main character's secretary chuckled and said that perhaps the authorities wanted to test the effectiveness of the Order of the Ruby Knights in catching especially dangerous criminals. Lionel added that in case of failure, the authorities would be able to place all the blame on the shoulders of the Knights of the Order. The main character agreed with her assistant. Here he was right. Clara Waven recalled the plot of the original novel she had stumbled into. In the book, the task of capturing the Phantom Thief was entrusted to the Order of the Diamond Knights. They are the elite of the security services and only handle especially important government affairs. The main character decided to reread the letter from Mayor Satan. The girl read that for additional instructions, she could contact Captain Heloic Schiffer, who is the head of the Order of the Diamond Knights. Clara Waven finished reading the ill-fated message and decided to immediately go to the captain of the Diamond Knights to clarify the situation. Intuition tells the girl that something is wrong here. The main character quickly reached the Imperial Castle, where the Diamond Knights barracks are located. The girl rarely visits this castle, where many interesting things happen. She prefers to stay away from the noise and bustle. Clara Waven stands in front of the entrance to the Diamond Knights Order. She is thinking about how to talk to the head of the order so that he can explain what is really going on. The main character finally collected her thoughts and knocked on the large and strong door that leads to the barracks of the Knightly Order. The door did not open, but someone answered behind it. It was Captain Heloic Schiffer. He asked who was knocking. The girl introduced herself and asked to open the door. But the captain told her to wait a little. The boss of the Diamond Knights said that he had guests now, and the main character would have to wait outside the door until he finished his conversation with the visitor. The girl was a little surprised by this circumstance, but she decided to fulfill the captain's request. A few minutes later, Sir Heloic Schiffer allowed the main character to enter his office. The girl never saw who came to the head of the Order of the Diamond Knights. The mysterious guest apparently left through the emergency exit. Heloic Schiffer was delighted to see his protégé, whom he had once taught the art of fencing. The captain of the Diamond Knights had always treated the main character well. He said that he was glad to see the girl. She had not visited the commander for a long time. Clara Waven replied that she was very busy with the affairs of the Order of the Ruby Knights, so she had no time to visit her superiors. The girl lied. There is another reason for her rare visits to Captain Schiffer. The commander of the Diamond Knights personally taught the main character the art of fencing, but the training took place without any concessions from the captain. Therefore, the girl is afraid of Heloic Schiffer and his educational methods. The main character's trainer once said that fencing skills must be constantly maintained at a high level. Therefore, he will personally check the level of readiness every time the girl comes to him. Clara Waven recalled her difficult training with Captain Schiffer and admired his excellent fencing skills. He was a true professional in this field. The main character also admires and respects the fact that the captain of the Order of the Diamond Knights rose to the title of Count, starting his service as an ordinary knight of low birth. Clara Waven got straight to the point and said that she had come to clarify information regarding the order to capture the Phantom Thief Heilbronner. The captain of the Diamond Knights said that all the information that the sentries had collected had been systematized by one of the knights. The girl needed to go to the training ground and talk to that member of the order. The main character said that she would carry out the captain's order no matter what. The chief of the Diamond Knights wished the girl good luck and asked her to try hard to carry out this important task. Clara Waven pretended to be obedient, but she realized that the captain wanted to give her the responsibility that he himself should fulfill. The girl would act as the culprit in case of failure to find the Phantom Thief. The main character does not like to ask others for favors, especially her superiors. But in the current situation, the girl is forced to ask Captain Schiffer for more people and financial resources to carry out such an important state matter. There are only 4 Ruby Knights left, including their superior. The captain of the Diamond Knights listened to his interlocutor and thought that she was right. For some reason, the commander did not think about the small number of the Order of the Ruby Knights. This could become a problem. Heloic Schiffer smiled and said that he would definitely take the current circumstances into account and come up with something. But that would be later, because the captain had a lot of things to do now. The main character realized that she would have to rely only on her own capabilities and the help of the remaining Ruby Knights. The captain said that he could hand over this important matter to the Order of the Emerald Knights if it was too difficult for the main character's team. But the girl immediately refused the commander's offer and said that she was ready to honorably carry out his assignment. Clara Waven added that the Phantom Thief Heilbronner must be caught at any cost. The girl will do everything in her power to catch this criminal who threatens the security of the Empire. At this time, Sir Schiffer's mysterious visitor is in the next room and listens to the conversation that takes place between the captain and the main character. This mysterious man calmly drinks tea and reflects on what he just heard in the office of the Diamond Knight's chief. The main character told her commander that she would definitely catch the phantom thief Heilbronner and show him the severity of the Empire's laws. The mysterious guest listens to the girl's words and smiles mysteriously. Heroic Schiffer listened to his subordinate and was very pleased with her rhetoric. The captain of the Diamond Knights said that he was right to choose Clara Waven for this important and difficult task. He stood up from his desk and said that it was time to introduce the main character to an important person with whom she would often cross paths while carrying out her mission. The captain headed for the door that led to the next room. He said that he would now introduce his subordinate to the mysterious guest. The girl is impatiently waiting for her commander to open the door to the next office. She is very curious about who is there. Captain Schiffer finally opened the door, and the main character saw her boss's mysterious guest, with whom he wants to introduce her. The girl saw in front of her a young and handsome aristocrat, who immediately charmed her with his appearance and gait. The chief of the Diamond Knights told his subordinate that the person in front of her was the illustrious Viscount Rutger Cassin. He is the confidant of the Emperor and the heir to the throne. The main character looks closely at the handsome aristocrat who immediately captured her heart. Deep down, she always dreamed of meeting such a dazzling, handsome man from high society. But what makes the current situation especially piquant is the fact that Clara Waven and Viscount Cassin had already met a month ago during their duel, when the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights removed the mask from the phantom thief with a well-aimed blow of her sword and found out who was underneath it. The Viscount also recognized Clara Waven. He looks at the confused girl and smiles mysteriously, finding the situation quite funny. The girl hopes that Viscount Cassin did not hear how she scolded the phantom thief Heilbronner in the next office and promised to punish him to the full extent of Imperial laws. The captain of the Diamond Knights noticed the way the heroine was looking at the Viscount. He said that she shouldn't stare at people like that. It might embarrass them. The girl decided to break the awkward pause and introduce herself to her new acquaintance. She said that her name was Clara Waven and that she was always ready to serve the Viscount. The main character looks closely at her interlocutor and thinks that she did not expect to meet the phantom thief Heilbronner again so easily in the office of the head of the Diamond Knights. Cassin's beauty once again and thought that almost all villains were usually very handsome. It was an interesting pattern. The noble aristocrat smiled affably at his interlocutor and extended his hand to greet the girl. The young people sealed their new alliance to catch the phantom thief with a firm handshake. The main character can't come to her senses and believe that at this moment she is shaking the hand of the person who urgently needs to be caught. The captain of the Diamond Knights said that Viscount Cassin is currently working in the Imperial Palace and is responsible for the Empire's cultural heritage and the ruins of ancient buildings. The commander of the Ruby Knights knows that the phantom thief Heilbronner is hiding in the ancient ruins, and now it turns out that he is also in charge of these ruins. This is a very strange situation that the main character cannot comprehend. The girl looks closely at the aristocrat who leads a double life and understands that now she will see him often at work. It turns out that Clara Waven got into big trouble. Viscount Cassin smiled mysteriously at the girl. He fully understands the current situation and the helplessness of the main character. This amuses the young aristocrat. Waven's interlocutor chuckled again and said that he liked the girl's energy, with whom she promised to catch the phantom thief Heilbronner. It seemed that the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights harbored a great grudge against the criminal. The Viscount asked if there was a special reason for this. You can't just be angry at someone. Even if he is a notorious villain, there must be a personal motive. The main character listened to her interlocutor. She understands that this noble and powerful aristocrat heard her conversation with the captain of the Diamond Knights in full. It's terrible. The girl is very confused and does not know what to do with the current situation. She noticed that Viscount Cassin was mocking her, thus showing even more of his villainous genius. The dazzling Viscount looks attentively at the main character and is silently meaningful. He studies his interlocutor and continues his subtle psychological game. The head of the Ruby Knights thought for a moment and said that, in fact, she had no particular reason to hate the phantom thief Heilbronner. The girl added that she was the captain of the knightly order, so she was obliged to catch the criminal who was breaking the laws of the state and bringing a lot of trouble to the great Emperor Hexen III. In the current situation, the main character decided not to reveal her true motives. Let Viscount Cassin and Heroic Schiffer think that the girl simply loves her job and is ready to do anything for the prosperity of the Empire. The noble Viscount sighed with relief and said that the heroine was doing well as the captain of the Order of the Ruby Knights. It seemed that this hypocritical aristocrat believed the girl's excuses. Rutger Kassin smiled amiably and said that such remarkable zeal and devotion to duty should be rewarded with dignity. Clara Waven was a little embarrassed when she heard the words of her interlocutor. The main character thought that for today she had enough surprises and psychological games with the cunning Viscount who leads a double life. The girl thanked the captain of the Diamond Knights and Rutger Kasena for an interesting and meaningful conversation and hastened to immediately move away from these problematic gentlemen. The Viscount and the captain were left alone in the office after the main character had left them in a hurry. Rutger Kassin enjoys the aromatic tea. He said that Clara Waven made a good impression on him, but the Minister of Cultural Heritage and Ancient Ruins is a little puzzled by the girl's age. Doesn't the captain of the Diamond Knights think that this young lady is too young to be the head of the knightly order? Heloic Schiffer replied that the Viscount need not worry about that, because Clara Waven was as worthy of her position as anyone. There is an interesting story behind this. Waven was once a member of the same knightly order as the son of a certain influential aristocrat. But due to her natural talent and hard work, the brave girl showed herself to be better in the service than the son of an influential and rich aristocrat. This led to sad consequences. The main character was quickly demoted to edification. She is a commoner by birth, so she has no right to compete with representatives of the aristocratic stratum of society. The girl was given the position of head of a lower knightly order because it was impossible to kick her out of the Empire's power structures due to her excellent service record. The Viscount listened to the story that the captain told him and said that he felt very sorry for Lady Waven. She deserved a better life. The chief of the Diamond Knights agreed with his interlocutor. He was also very sorry about what happened to Clara Waven. He understood the girl because he also came from a poor family. Viscount Kassin placed his empty cup on the table and asked the captain if the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights would be able to catch the phantom thief Heilbronner with such meager resources and a small crew. The young aristocrat admits that catching such a dangerous and unpredictable criminal requires resources much greater than 4 unfortunate knights who can only pick up drunks on the streets of the capital. The captain of the Diamond Knights listened attentively to his noble and insightful interlocutor. Heloic Schiffer did not answer the Viscount. He lowered his head and was silently meaningful. In fact, the captain entrusted this matter to the main character so that she could show herself from a good side and get a promotion. The captain thought about it and remembered his joint fencing training with the main character. He believes that this girl is a real military genius. The Viscount understood what his interlocutor meant and said that Lady Waven gave the impression of being a rather ambitious young lady who underestimated herself. Therefore, the girl would do everything to prove her efficiency and competence. The captain of the Diamond Knights agreed with his interlocutor and asked the Viscount to keep an eye on the main character during the investigation of the phantom thief Heilbronner. This pleased Rutger Kasena. He will definitely take advantage of this. Clara Waven walks down the corridor of the Imperial Castle and reflects on today's events, which have left her very puzzled. The girl understands that from now on, her measured and calm life will change a lot. She took up the case of the phantom thief Heilbronner and interested the Viscount. The main character went to the training ground of the Diamond Knights to find the right person and get acquainted with the materials of the criminal case that she will have to investigate. Clara Waven saw a beautiful stranger on the training ground who is a member of the Order of the Diamond Knights and is engaged in fencing. The main character will have to take the materials of the criminal case from this girl. The head of the Ruby Knights looks at the beautiful stranger and admires her beauty and courage. Deep down, the main character envies her. When the beautiful stranger saw the female lead entering the Diamond Knights training ground, she immediately began to chase Clara Waven away. The girl thought that the head of the Ruby Knights was a maid who was not allowed to enter the training ground. For the main character, it was like being hit on the head with a big, heavy stone. She didn't expect that the Diamond Knight would take her for a pathetic servant who could only wash the floors and wipe the dust. Clara Waven didn't lose her composure. She immediately introduced herself and said who she was. Now it was the beautiful stranger's turn to be surprised and embarrassed. The beautiful night girl was a little confused and began to apologize to the main character for her mistake. Clara Waven said that she was not offended by her and understood everything. The girl made a mistake because the leader of the Ruby Knights did not wear her uniform. The beautiful stranger introduced herself and said that her name was Len. Maple.she is a member of the Diamond Knights. The main character was very happy when she met Len. Maple. This night girl is known to Clara Waven from the storyline of the book where she magically ended up. Based on the romantic story of Lan Maple is the personal bodyguard of the Crown Prince, who acts as the main character. This often caused jealousy in the beloved of the heir to the throne. The prince's former tutor understands that she is no longer as young and beautiful as before. That is why she has always been jealous of her lover to all the girls who are younger than her. But Lan Maple always simply did her duty, and never had romantic feelings for the master. Suddenly, another stranger intervened in the conversation of the two female knights. He also mistook the main character for a servant who was forbidden to enter the training ground. This rude knight of great stature is not distinguished by good manners. But he decided to stand up for Lan Maple, told the main character not to bother her. She has no right to do so. Waven's new friend decided to stand up for her. But the rude knight, whose name is Captain Crossner, did not listen to Lan. Maple said that he would now deal with the main character himself, whom he took for a pathetic servant. The slightly angry girl had to take out her knight's badge and introduce herself to the boastful knight. But this did not cool his ardor. The rude Captain Crossner pounced on the main character with new accusations. He said that she should not have left her trashy Order of the Ruby Knights for a decent establishment and harassed his subordinate. Captain Crossner laughed loudly when the girl made a polite remark to him and accused him of being overly rude. Lan Maple holds the arrogant Diamond Knight's hand and tries to stop him from acting rudely anymore. But this has no effect on the rude captain, who believes in his own strength too much. The main character listened to this ill-mannered scoundrel and thought about her brothers in arms from the Order of the Ruby Knights. Clara Waven prefers to never get involved in quarrels and conflicts with others, but she will not allow anyone to offend her and her fellow soldiers. The head of the Ruby Knights decided to teach a lesson to the arrogant and ill-mannered Diamond Knight, who allowed himself to say something unnecessary to the wrong person today. The main character gathered all her will and determination into a fist and turned to Captain Crossner. The girl said that he dared to insult the Order of the Ruby Knights, and he will now have to answer for it. At first, the enraged Diamond Knight did not understand what the fragile-looking and poorly dressed girl wanted from him. But after a few seconds, the captain realized that the situation was becoming dangerous. Now the main character began to get angry and react emotionally to the situation. The girl looked into the eyes of the impudent captain and said directly that she was challenging him to a duel. Here and now, Clara Waven became very excited. The girl thought that now was the time to throw a gauntlet at her opponent's face. The main character started to rummage through her pockets in search of a glove, but it turned out that her girlfriend was not there. She had left her gloves in her office. It was a shame. It could have been a good theatrical performance, but fate willed that the bloody duel would not take place today. Suddenly, Viscount Cassin appeared on the training ground and asked what was going on here. The main character did not expect such a turn of events. The girl begins to think that Rutger Cassin is pursuing her for some special reason. It's worth thinking about it. The cunning Captain Crossner immediately came up with an excuse to justify himself to his superior and said that he had reprimanded the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights for harassing his subordinate, Lan Mapledot. Viscount Cassin asked the main character if Captain Crossner was telling the truth. The girl answered that the Diamond Knight was lying. In fact, only he and no one else was rude. Clara Waven turned to the Viscount decisively and said that she was challenging Captain Crossner to a duel. She wanted to fight here and now to find out who was right and who was wrong. The Diamond Knight turns out to be a coward, despite his ostentatious rudeness. He pretends that this is the first time he has heard about the girl's challenge to a duel. Lan Maple does not believe that all this is really happening. The girl understands that this conflict broke out for a trivial reason. But if the knights are not stopped, then one of them will die today, and nothing will happen to him for this, according to the laws of the Levka Empire. Captain Crossner realized that he was in mortal danger. He was very afraid of duels, so he turned to the Viscount for help. But Rutger Cassin said he would not interfere in the knights' affairs. Let them sort things out for themselves. The Viscount smiled meaningfully and looked at the main character carefully. After that, he told the leader of the Ruby Knights to continue what she started, but the main character's anger subsided as suddenly as it flared up. The girl said that she had forgotten her gloves in her office. Without them, she could not issue an official challenge to a duel. The interlocutors of the Chief of the Ruby Knights did not expect such a turn of events. Even the cowardly Captain Crossner was very surprised when the main character so suddenly refused to duel with him. For a few seconds, the girl felt very ashamed of her unworthy behavior. But she decided to act wisely and not get involved in dubious stories in the presence of the powerful Viscount. But cunning Rutger Kassin has no intention of retreating. He has decided at all costs to test the main character's combat skills, for which Captain Heloic Schiffer praised her so much. The Viscount took his gloves and gave them to the confused head of the Ruby Knights. This greatly puzzled the main character, who already regretted her lack of restraint. The girl looks fearfully at the ill-fated gloves that she holds in her trembling hands. She does not want to fight Captain Krosner, but apparently she will have to show her fighting skills today. The main character cannot yet understand how to act further, but a woman always remains a woman. She looks at the Viscount's gloves and understands that these are the very gloves she always dreamed of. But she did not have enough salary to buy them in the elite boutique Lausanne. This luxurious thing costs a lot of money. The girl understands that buying gloves would cost her entire monthly salary. Such mundane thoughts calmed the main character a little and distracted her from thinking about the upcoming duel. Viscount Kassin said that he would watch the duel between the leader of the Ruby Knights and Captain Krosner from the spectator seat. The main character again began to quickly think about how she could get out of this situation with honor. The girl thought for a moment and decided that she had nothing to lose now. Let the duel take place and everyone get what they deserve. The commander of the Ruby Knights took the gauntlet that Viscount Kassin had given her and threw it with all her might at the impudent Captain Krosner. The girl decided to go all the way and teach the ill-mannered and arrogant knight of the Diamond Order a lesson. The main character pointed her finger at her frightened and confused opponent and loudly said that she was challenging him to a duel here and now. She was doing this to protect the honor of the Order of the Ruby Knights and to get an apology from the captain if she won. A few minutes later, the knights were already at the ready. The Viscount sits among the other spectators and watches the opponents. The judge announced the start of the duel. Now the battle for honor can begin. Before entering into a fight with the main character, Captain Krosner told the girl that she still had the opportunity to refuse the duel and save her life. The girl bravely answered the Diamond Knight that he was wrong. The only one who would lose today was the ill-mannered captain who dared to encroach on the honor of the Order of the Ruby Knights. The judge of the duel said that the loser would be the one who first threw down his weapon or admitted defeat. Then the referee threw a coin and announced the start of the duel. The main character immediately rushed into battle. She decided to quickly close the distance with Captain Krosner in order to deliver a powerful blow to him with her sword. Suddenly, the girl pushed off the ground with her feet and flew high into the air to jump over her opponent. The main character decided to use this tricky trick to confuse her opponent. The Diamond Knight did not expect such a turn of events. He can only stand on the ground and look at the agile girl who can jump very high in confusion. The captain does not know what to do and how to repel the attack of the Ruby Knight's chief. The main character put her leg forward in flight to hit her opponent on the back and disarm him. A few more moments and the powerful blow will hit the target. Clara Waven is rightfully considered a master of fencing. The girl just showed it to everyone present at the training ground. The main character hung in the air for a moment. It seems that she is not fighting, but simply playing with her opponent. The Diamond Knight received a powerful blow to the back. The girl kicked the captain with her foot and he felt severe pain, but did not fall to the ground as the main character expected. It turned out that this impudent fighter knows how to control his aura, which allows him to defeat enemies. The girl realized that this fight would not be as easy as she had thought at first. She would have to change her tactics because Captain Krosner turned out to be a strong and trained fighter, despite his arrogance. Clara Waven thought about this before landing and getting back into a fighting stance. The girl began to recall everything she knew about the fighting aura that all knights had. Aura is different from ordinary magic, which can be learned throughout life. A person receives this gift from the moment of birth and can develop the ability to wield it through persistent training. If a knight can learn to use his fighting aura, he will be able to increase the powers that are inherent in him by nature many times over. This will make the warrior invincible. Captain Krosner was very angry that the girl had kicked him in the back. He grinned evilly and said through his teeth that he wanted to finish his opponent very quickly and swiftly. The Diamond Knight swung his sword and sent a stream of his fighting aura towards the main character, which resembles a raging flame that sweeps away everything in its path. The main character bravely waits for the fiery stream of hostile aura. The girl is ready to repel this powerful attack. To do this, she will need to show all her abilities. In order to properly repel the flow of a fighter's aura, a knight must be extremely focused. One wrong move with a sword and the defense will be absolutely useless. The head of the Ruby Knights focused on her defensive actions, and it was a great success, because one swing of the blade was enough for the brave girl to repel the enemy's powerful energy attack. The main character redirected the flow of her opponent's aura away from herself without any unnecessary movements or energy expenditure. This slightly discouraged Captain Crossner, who froze in surprise for a few moments. The experienced knight did not expect that the young girl was capable of such mastery in the art of controlling a fighter's aura. The thought that he was beginning to respect his opponent began to creep into the head of the impudent captain. Perhaps the Diamond Knight had jumped to conclusions and underestimated the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights, but the captain's doubts did not last long. He was very upset that the main character parried his powerful energy attack and openly told her about it. The girl replied that anyone in her place would have done the same. The captain of the Diamond Knights rushed to attack again, but he did it so obviously and directly that it greatly disappointed the main character. She expected more skill from a knight who is in the best power structure of the Empire. Clara Waven looks at the approaching Captain Crossner with attention and concentration. The girl is tired of these stupid games, and she decided to quickly end the duel. Moreover, her working day will soon come to an end. Now it's the heroine's turn to use her fighting aura to quickly deal with her opponent, who today needs to be taught an important life lesson and good manners. The Diamond Knight came close to the girl and dealt her a powerful blow with his blade. But the head of the Ruby Knights repelled this predictable attack with casual ease. The main character confidently and easily holds her blade in her hands. The girl's fighting aura fills her sword and gradually fills with incredible power, which will put an end to the protracted duel. Clara Waven is confident in her abilities. She smiled at the discouraged Captain Crossner and said that it was time for them to say goodbye. Now the girl had to deliver the final blow to show the arrogant knight who was the best here. A short moment later, the Diamond Knight screamed in unbearable pain. The girl's powerful fighting aura filled the entire being of the defeated enemy, who suffered a crushing defeat. The moment of truth has arrived. The duel has ended in favor of the main character. Captain Crossner fell to the ground and dropped his blade. Now he is officially considered the losing side. This was recorded by the judge of the duel. Waven had won the knightly duel. The main character stands proudly over her defeated opponent. She is pleased with herself. All the spectators were pleased with the exciting spectacle they had just seen. Now everyone knows who is the best knight here. A joyful Len ran up to the main character Maple, who told the girl that she was simply delightful, and offered her some cold water to refresh herself. The winner took a bottle of water from her admirer and thanked her for the timely gift. The main character really wanted to drink, and cold water came in handy. Clara Waven drank some water and noticed that Viscount Cassin had already left his spectator seat and quietly left the Diamond Knights training ground. The aristocrat's behavior surprised the main character. Meanwhile, Rutger Cassin was already walking down the corridor of the Imperial Palace and thinking about the duel he had seen. The Viscount had managed to convince himself of the extraordinary abilities of the head of the Ruby Knights, and realized that Heloic Schiffer was right to entrust the capture of the Phantom Thief to this talented girl. The main character managed to surprise the experienced and cunning Viscount. The aristocrat thinks that the situation is becoming much more interesting than he expected. Rutger Cassin has never seen such a skilled swordswoman with such a powerful energy aura that she can masterfully control. This is worthy of admiration and praise. The Viscount remembered that the main character had spoken very hostilely about the Phantom Thief Heilbronner. So now the famous criminal has a worthy opponent in the person of the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights. All this could end very interestingly and unpredictably. Evening came. The main character returned home. The Ruby Knights met in their favorite tavern to eat the dinner that Secretary Lionel had promised to treat them to. The female lead's assistant said that he heard about the duel in the Diamond Knights training hall today. He was glad that the girl was able to have some fun after a long break. Clara Waven replied that Captain Crossner was a weak and boring opponent who fainted before he could apologize for his rudeness. Lionel asked his boss what Viscount Cassin was doing in the Diamond Knights training hall and how he ended up there. It was quite unexpected for him. The main character told her secretary everything that happened today and showed her the gloves that the noble aristocrat gave her so that she could challenge her opponent to a duel according to all the rules. The girl believes that the gloves should be returned to their owner. Lionel saw the Viscount's gloves, which the girl showed him, and was very happy. The secretary advised his boss not to return this gift from the noble aristocrat because it costs a lot of money and was made in a very limited quantity. Such gloves cannot be found anywhere else. The girl listened to her secretary and thought that he loved beautiful and expensive things too much. She decided to return the gloves to their owner during their next meeting. The main character's assistant thought about it and said that now the Ruby Knights will have a lot more work because of the phantom thief Heilbronner. Clara Waven suggested that they no longer talk about business, but simply relax and enjoy a fine dinner. The Ruby Knights happily supported their captain. The main character raised her glass of beer and said that she wanted to drink to the Order of the Ruby Knights, as well as to its long-continued existence. Knight Billy also raised his glass and supported the girl's toast. The next morning arrived. Clara Waven arrived at work and met the fourth Ruby Knight named Sane, who had come to the office earlier than usual today. Knight Sane greeted his boss and said that he had been working on documents and materials on the case of the phantom thief Heilbronner since early morning. He had prepared the papers for the main character. They were already lying on her desk. The girl praised the executive and prudent worker. Sane asked his boss to let him leave work today at lunchtime. The knight has important things to do. The main character allowed him to leave early today. The head of the Order of the Ruby Knights told Knight Sane that he will have to keep to a work schedule in the future. This is necessary in order to catch the phantom thief Heilbronner, who usually appears after 10 o'clock at night. Now everyone will have to adapt to this damned criminal in order to get on his trail. Suddenly, the Ruby Knight Billy entered the main character's office. He said that he had wonderful news that he urgently wanted to share with his boss. The joyful knight showed Clara Waven and Sane, who was standing next to her, some document. Billy said that the phantom thief Heilbronner had made himself known and sent another letter. This meant that another high-profile theft would soon be committed. The main character and Knight Sane opened their mouths in surprise and surprise. They did not expect the events to develop so quickly. The head of the Order of the Ruby Knights immediately thought of Viscount Rutger. Cassine. This aristocrat turned out to be very unpredictable in his actions. He accepted the girl's challenge and began a psychological game with her, letting her know that he would soon commit another crime. The main character decided to read the letter of the phantom thief. The message says that on February 5th, exactly at 10 o'clock in the evening, a precious thing will be stolen from the estate of Count Schillermann. The Ruby Knights leaned over the letter from Heilbronner and studied it carefully. Knight Billy said that this document was a copy, but the meaning of the message was clear. Secretary Lionel noticed that the phantom thief had broken his usual schedule of crimes. The Ruby Knight made this conclusion based on the date of the future theft indicated in the criminal's daring message. The main character smiled mysteriously and answered her subordinate that the phantom thief, Heilbronner, apparently wants to test the Order of the Ruby Knights and see what it is capable of. The girl turned to the Ruby Knight Sane and said that he could hand over all his affairs to her secretary. The main character and her subordinate urgently need to go to the estate of Count Schillermann to make a preliminary investigation and prepare for a possible theft. Lionel didn't like the idea very much because he was already very busy with work, which had accumulated more than enough lately. But there was nothing to be done. This was the boss's decision. After some time, the main character and the Ruby Knight Sane were already at the estate of Count Schillermann. They warned the owner of the luxurious palace that the ghostly thief Heilbronner would soon visit him. The Count was very angry when he learned that he could soon become another victim of a dangerous criminal. He said that this despicable bandit would not dare to disturb his peace and harm him. Otherwise, he would face a fitting punishment. The head of the Order of the Ruby Knights showed the angry aristocrat a letter from the phantom thief Heilbronner so that he could see for himself the reality of the upcoming theft. Count Schillermann reads an ill-fated letter from an impudent criminal who wants to rob him. The main character asks the Count if he has any suggestions about what kind of thing the phantom thief might be interested in. The puzzled aristocrat thought for a moment and said that he had nothing that could interest Heilbronner. Then the girl decided to look at the matter from the other side and asked the Count if the Count had such a thing that was very important to him in the sense of personal attachment to her. Count Schillermann thought deeply again and replied that all people have such things. If you think carefully, you can make several assumptions about this and find the most suitable items. The Count's answer interested the main character. This is already something. It means that the case is starting to move from a dead point. Perhaps the girl will be able to make bait that will catch the phantom thief. The interlocutor of the head of the Ruby Knights thought carefully and said that Heilbronner might be interested in a certain chest that was in the Count's chambers. Clara Waven looked closely at the confused aristocrat, who was beginning to understand that things could take a very serious turn if the necessary measures were not taken. The main character realized that Count Schillerman was not telling her the whole truth and was trying to hide some important information from the girl. This could greatly harm the investigation. The head of the Ruby Knights asked the owner of the estate if she could take a look around to organize effective protection of the territory from a possible invasion by the phantom thief Heilbronner. The capricious count does not want to cooperate with the investigation. He stated that he does not want his estate to be inspected by the Ruby Knights. For him, this would be an unnecessary blow to his delicate nervous system. Let the girl and her assistant inspect the estate's surroundings. Nightscene listened carefully to Count Schillerman and quietly told his superior that this stupid aristocrat did not want to help in the investigation. It was all very strange. The main character agreed with her colleague. Suddenly, the Count's servant entered the room and said that an important guest had arrived. This slightly puzzled the cunning aristocrat, who did not know what to say now so as not to arouse any suspicions from the head of the Ruby Knights. The nimble servant quickly approached the Count and whispered the name of the unexpected guest in his ear. The aristocrat was delighted with this news. The Count smiled and ordered his servant to immediately let the guest in and invite him to an audience. This greatly surprised and puzzled Clara Waven. The secretive Count did not say who had come to visit him, but he turned to the main character and her subordinate and told them to quickly finish inspecting the estate from the outside and leave. The head of the Ruby Knights did not argue with the cunning aristocrat and replied that she would do as he wished. Rutger entered the living room. Cassine and the main character realized that he was the unexpected guest that Count Schillerman wanted to hide. The girl looked closely at the Viscount who entered and realized that he was especially handsome today. Clara Waven's heartbeat quickened. Rutger Cassine calmly and majestically entered the reception room and greeted everyone present. The Viscount's visit seems very strange to the main character. Count Schillerman was very pleased to have such an important and honorable guest. He greeted Viscount Cassine obsequiously and said that he was very glad to see him in his home. The head of the Ruby Knights looked at the Viscount and thought that what was happening now was a situation where a thief came to a potential crime scene in advance to study it well. Rutger Cassine said he already knew about Count Schillerman's problems. The Viscount had heard that the phantom thief Heilbronner wanted to rob the owner of this wonderful estate. The Viscount turned his attention to the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights and assumed that she was here for the same reason as he was. The main character was a little embarrassed under the intense and courageous gaze of the noble aristocrat, who said that only one day had passed, but they met again. This is a good sign. The girl did not answer and politely greeted the Viscount. Rutger Cassine asked if Clara Waven had finished her inspection of the estate and its surroundings. The Count intervened and said that the girl and her colleague had already completed their work and were about to leave. The Viscount looked closely at the main character and asked if the owner of this beautiful estate was telling the truth. The girl smiled and answered the aristocrat that Count Schillerman was telling the truth. There were no important or precious things in the estate that could interest the phantom thief Heilbronner. Rutger Cassine said that Sir Heloic Schiffer had asked him to assist in any way he could with the investigation of Clara Waven. The main character thanked the Viscount and said that she needed to urgently complete the inspection of the estate's surroundings in order to organize effective protection of the Count's estate. The Viscount smiled mysteriously and asked if the girl had completed her preliminary inspection of the interior of the estate. This could prove very important for further investigation. The main character was very surprised when she heard the words of the aristocrat. She is silent and thinks what to answer the Viscount. Sine intervened and said that, in fact, Count Schillerman did not allow them to inspect the inside of his house. Clara Waven did not expect such a turn of events. This information made Rutger very happy. Cassina. He decided to check with the owner of the estate whether this was true. The head of the Ruby Knights understands that this is what the Viscount was waiting for. Count Schillerman was taken aback and replied that all this was the absolute truth. There was nothing in his house that could interest the famous thief who was the terror of the entire empire. The Viscount said he wanted to postpone an important conversation the Count wanted to have with him. It was more important to deal with the phantom thief case. The nobleman turned to Nightscene and said he could inspect the estate from the inside, not just the outside. Rutger Cassine asked the main character if she could talk to him while she was looking around the Count's estate from the outside. The main character did not expect this and was a little confused. The girl stares at the noble aristocrat and admires his beautiful appearance. She understands that this smart and far-sighted nobleman has something in mind and wants to implement his plan with the help of the head of the Ruby Knights. Clara Waven walked out into the street accompanied by Rutger Cassena. She looks at the Viscount and cannot believe that this beautiful man leads a double life and is going to rob Count Schullermann under the guise of the phantom thief Heilbronner. The main character admires the handsome face of a noble aristocrat who made a strong impression on her. The girl thinks that God put all his strength into creating this beautiful man. The Viscount turned his attention to Clara Waven and said that the girl was currently facing too many obstacles and problems. The head of the Order of the Ruby Knights responded that after her force received an important task, all members of the Order felt a great responsibility and wanted to catch the phantom thief Heilbronner. Rutger Kassin looked closely at the brave girl who did not want to admit her difficulties in order to preserve her knightly honor. The Viscount said that such an important task was received very suddenly and required time for the knights to adapt. The main character's interlocutor asked her what she knew about the phantom thief Heilbronner. The girl is in no hurry to answer him frankly. She knows that the Viscount himself is this criminal and is playing a double game. The head of the Ruby Knights said that she had not yet had time to study all the documents in this case. Therefore, she only has publicly known information about the elusive bandit. The noble aristocrat smiled meaningfully and said that the case of providing the Order of the Ruby Knights with additional assistance to conduct the investigation would soon be considered. The main character did not expect such a development of events. The girl does not understand why the authorities decided to finally help her small detachment, which has long needed support. The Viscount added that he was not the last person among the officials who would make the decision to provide assistance to the Ruby Order. Rutger Kassin smiled politely again and said that he wanted to understand what information the knights had and how they were going to catch the phantom thief Heilbronner. The main character listened attentively to her interlocutor. The perceptive girl does not really like the Viscount's idea. She does not want to reveal all her cards to a person who is not part of her knightly order. Waven wants most now is for everything to return to normal. The girl dreams of handing over the case of the phantom thief to another knightly order, so that she can once again lead a calm and carefree existence away from problems. Therefore, the Ruby Knights do not need support at all. Otherwise, the main character and her comrades will have to deal with this scandalous bandit. Rutger Kassin looks at his interlocutor attentively and waits for her answer. But the girl thinks that it is better for her to remain silent now, and the case of the phantom thief will be transferred to another power structure of the Empire. But the real fighting nature of the main character does not give her peace. She cannot accept the fact that she will retreat and not complete the important state matter that was entrusted to her. The head of the Ruby Knights understands that she could use some extra money and people in any case. If the girl doesn't spend these resources on the investigation, she can find a more rational use for them. The main character thought that the captain of a small knightly order always has a lot of things to do. But now there are even more. Something needs to be done about this urgently. Otherwise, you can get nervous exhaustion at work. The far-sighted girl decided to do everything to get additional resources from the government and strengthen her knightly order at any cost. She decided to take advantage of the Viscount's offer. Clara Waven asked the nobleman if he could organize support for the Ruby Knights order if he liked her answer. These words somewhat confused Rutger Kassin because he did not expect his interlocutor to be so frank in her desires and goals. After a few seconds, the Viscount smiled and said that the heroine had understood him correctly. He would support Clara Waven's knightly order if she told him all the information she currently had about the phantom thief Heilbronner. The girl replied that, in that case, she wanted to share her humble opinion regarding the investigation of the case of the notorious thief, who had already become tiresome to everyone, and should be caught and punished severely. The main character paused meaningfully and said that the search for the criminal could be narrowed down to the circle of noble aristocrats from high society. Several signs point to this. The Viscount was somewhat taken aback when he heard the words of his interlocutor. This girl turned out to be not only a magnificent swordswoman, but also a very perceptive young detective. The main villain was not at a loss for long. He immediately collected his thoughts and said that this could not be. Perhaps there was some mistake in the main character's reasoning. The Viscount thought for a moment and said that, in any case, the opinion of the head of the Ruby Knights should be carefully considered before drawing any conclusions. The main character replied that she had 3 reasons, based on which she made the appropriate conclusions about the true identity of the phantom thief. Firstly, this criminal's style of work shows him to be a novice, not a professional. He steals cheap things and sends pompous letters which can do him a disservice. Secondly, the phantom thief Heilbronner always returns what he stole from his victims. This suggests that the criminal has the means to live and does not need anything. Therefore, he is a rich aristocrat. Thirdly, this criminal knows too much. He always has information about the things and estates of the aristocrats he steals. This means that the thief moves among those people who become his victims. The Viscount listened to his interlocutor's arguments and said that he completely agreed with her. The girl had done a good mental job. It was impossible not to agree with her. The main character replied that she was finally convinced that the phantom thief Heilbronner was an aristocrat when she received today's letter from the criminal. The girl said that she had recently received an order to take on the case of a phantom thief and almost immediately received a message from the criminal. In order to have information about the transfer of the case to another power structure, one must be a person of high society and also have great connections with the government and law enforcement agencies. Rutger Kassin listens attentively to the captain of the Ruby Knights and admires her ability to draw correct, logical conclusions. This extraordinary girl gets too close to the Viscount and his alter ego. The Viscount collected his thoughts and smiled mysteriously. He told the heroine that she had made a wonderful impression on him today thanks to her prudence. This deserved a reward. The main villain added that the conclusions of the captain of the Ruby Knights were simply impressive, especially considering the fact that the girl did not have time to familiarize herself with the case materials. The Viscount also said that he would now do everything to ensure that aid and material support were provided to the Order of the Ruby Knights as soon as possible. The main character was very happy and thanked the aristocrat. The girl pondered the behavior of her interlocutor. She had hinted at him in her reasoning about the phantom thief Heilbronner, but the reserved nobleman did not even blink an eye to somehow give himself away. The main character said that she was very lucky to have an assistant in the person of a noble and powerful Viscount. Clara Waven has asked permission to return to her duties to once again investigate the case of the phantom thief Heilbronner. The girl urgently needs to inspect the surroundings of Count Schillermann's estate. The Viscount has nothing against the main character taking up the investigation. The girl said goodbye to the aristocrat and went about her business. The interlocutors go their separate ways after an important conversation. Unexpectedly, Rutger Kassin turned around and addressed the main character. The head of the Ruby Knights heard the Viscount address her and turned around to see what he wanted to tell her. Perhaps it would be something important. Rutger Kassin looks at the main character intently. He asks if the girl thinks that the crimes of the phantom thief Heilbronner are some kind of funny hobby that amuses him. Clara Viven responded that she agreed with the Viscount. The aristocrat smiled mysteriously and said that the phantom thief Heilbronner might have other, more important motives for committing his scandalous crimes. The main character was puzzled by the words of the interlocutor. She thought that the Viscount wanted to tell her something very important about himself. But he could not do it directly, but only figuratively. For a moment, the head of the Ruby Knights had a new idea. Perhaps the phantom thief Heilbronner is not as simple as he might seem at first glance and has other motives for his tricks. Most likely, some woman is involved. Clara Waven looked at the noble aristocrat carefully, but he didn't say anything else to her. The hint the Viscount had just given was enough. The captain of the Ruby Knights bowed respectfully to Rutger. Kasenu. The main character said that she doesn't care about the criminal's motives. The thief should be in prison, and the girl will do everything in her power to catch the bandit. The main motive of the head of the Order of the Ruby Knights may seem too mundane and material, but she, as a captain, must take care of her subordinates. Therefore, the main character will do everything to strengthen and elevate her knightly order. The Viscount laughed heartily because the girl had spoken her thoughts out loud. The aristocrat said that everything suited him and that he fully understood the motives of the main character. Also, Rutger Kassin liked the fact that the captain had no personal grudge against the phantom thief. She does everything only for the sake of her knightly order. Now the main character and the Viscount have separated completely and each went about their own business. Clara Waven is very pleased that the Order of the Ruby Knights will soon receive worthy support. Returning to the headquarters of her knightly order, the captain discovered that she had forgotten to give the Viscount his precious gloves. This slightly upset the main character, who was used to always doing what she had planned. The day indicated in the message from the phantom thief Heilbronner has arrived. Clara Waven and her Ruby Knights are patrolling Count Schillermann's estate. Suddenly, several young men approached the main character and introduced themselves as members of the city guard. They said that they had been sent here to help the Ruby Knights patrol the Count's estate. The head of the Order of the Ruby Knights was very pleased that her Viscount had kept his word and sent her assistants, who would come in handy now. The captain said that the guards could begin patrolling the estate immediately. The main character turned to the Ruby Knight Sane and told him to keep a close eye on the second-floor windows. This is a potential place through which the phantom thief Heilbronner can get into the house. The head of the Ruby Knights set up posts and distributed the duties of the guards. After that, the brave girl climbed a tree that grows next to the Count's house. She decided to watch the windows of the estate, hiding among the thick foliage and branches at the level of the second floor. The main character carefully examines one of the windows of the house and understands that this is the perfect place for a cunning and unpredictable criminal to take advantage of it. In this fantasy story, many things and events are possible, but no one here is able to move in space. Therefore, the phantom thief Heilbronner has only one option for entering the house of Count Schullermann. He will be able to get into the estate only through one of the windows. Clara Waven knows that the phantom thief is able to instantly and effectively disappear from the scene of the crime. In addition, this impudent villain can quietly return to the scene of the theft. But there is no magic here. So believes the main character. The girl thinks that there are almost no real magicians left in this world, and all witchcraft is based on the laws of physics, which in turn are based on common sense and logic. It is possible that the phantom thief Heilbronner is one of the powerful magicians who can manipulate space and time, but no one knows for sure. The main character thought about it. Sometimes it seems to her that Viscount Rutger Kassin masterfully hides his magical talent to avoid being exposed and discovering who he really is. If the main villain is a wizard, he will be able to use one of his powerful spells and easily penetrate the estate of Count Schullermann. The head of the Order of the Ruby Knights now has something to think about. The girl strained all her mental abilities to understand whether she had missed some important detail today. She always thought that the phantom thief Heilbronner would present some unexpected surprise today. The head of the Ruby Knights recalled that Sir Sane had carefully inspected the Earl's house and had found nothing special that would interest the phantom thief. But something seemed strange to the Ruby Knight in the estate he had inspected. He told the captain that there were suspicious spots of spot repairs in different places of the Count's house. This puzzled the main character, Ruby Knight. Scene noticed that someone had tried to patch up the building after it was built. But for what purpose, no one could really say. Clara Waven recalls all this important information and tries to understand what is confusing her so much. Her intuition tells her that there is some kind of mystery here. The main character interrupted her thoughts because the clock struck 10 o'clock. It was the exact hour indicated in the message of the phantom thief, Heilbronner. The crime was about to happen. The head of the Order of the Ruby Knights is full of hunting passion and excitement. The blood boils in the veins of the main character, because she feels like a hunter who is waiting in ambush for game. Suddenly, the situation changed dramatically. Count Schullermann's estate began to be enveloped in some mysterious magical glow. The main character did not expect such a development of events. The girl sees almost nothing because of the bright flashes that light up everywhere. She cannot understand what is happening now. Ruby Knight Sane is also blinded by the bright flash. He complains to his superior that he can barely see anything. Despite the critical situation, the main character guessed that the phantom thief Heilbronner kept his word and used his extraordinary abilities to commit his next high-profile crime.